Welcome back, everybody, to the NCAA Next Up Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. Today's going to be a pretty fun episode as we wrap up season number 4. We're going to go through our final 4 games along with the national championship. So thus, a champion will be crowned today. As you guys know, this is the final season of NCAA Next Up, in which it is linked to the Titan series in Madden 23. So technically, this is a series finale in a way, but perhaps NCAA Next Up may be back in the future in some different iteration. But of this version of the series, today is the finale. Let's take a look at our bracket here now that we are down to 4. And it's been a very interesting road here in the playoffs so far. And we've got 2 very intriguing matchups. One of these 2 games features our 2 most recent national champions, while the other one features 2 teams who have not yet made the playoffs in this entire series. So we'll start with the game we'll watch first, Washington and Auburn. Both teams are coming off of big wins in the last episode, beating conference rivals. Washington and Cal had probably the game of the series and ended up going into 6 overtimes, but Washington ended up prevailing 65-62. The Huskies are the only team, of course, who is undefeated left in the tournament. As for Auburn, they got revenge on Florida after losing to the Gators in the SEC championship by beating them big. Neither of these 2 teams have made the college football playoff yet in the entirety of this series. And then on the flip side, we've got 2 teams who have been there, done that. TCU won the national championship in season 2. Ohio State won it last year. Both teams looking to get back to the championship. But we will start off with Washington and Auburn. 2 teams who have never made the playoffs in this series up until this season. And now one of them will get to play in the national championship. I think it's safe to say Auburn is probably the underdog here, but they were also the underdog when they played against Florida in the previous round. Florida beat Auburn convincingly in the SEC championship, so it may have come to a surprise of some that Auburn blew Florida out of the water in the college football playoff. This is a very similar road to Ohio State last year. They got upset in the conference championship, and then they not only beat that team in the playoff, but of course Ohio State ended up winning the championship last year. So could Auburn face a similar role? It is worth noting that both Ohio State last year and Auburn this year are 6 seeds. Auburn has been up and down throughout the season, really throughout the final part of the season. They've had some bad performances, but they're coming off a good win against Navy, and obviously the win against Florida really stamped themselves as a true contender here in the playoff. Auburn ran the ball down Florida's throats, and it might be a little bit more challenging against a great Washington defense, but if these guys can beat Florida, I think they have what it takes to win a championship. As for the Washington Huskies, we know these guys have been very close to making the playoff multiple years in a row, losing the conference championships in season 2 and 3, but they finally got the job done this year, and in their first ever playoff game, they nearly lost. They needed 6 overtimes to defeat Cal. Both teams had many opportunities to put the game away way earlier, and they never did, and Washington ultimately outlasted the Golden Bears. So on one hand, it does show a lot of fight and perseverance that Washington lasted 6 overtimes and still won. But on the other hand, could they be out of gas, and could that go to Auburn's advantage? Washington is the better team, led by, of course, Kai Suggs-Gardner. They've got a great backfield. They've got Fred Biletnikoff, winner at receiver, and they've got one of the best front units in the country, along with a very strong secondary as well. There's no weakness on this team whatsoever. There's a reason why they are the only undefeated team left. And on paper, Washington theoretically should win this game against Auburn. But as we know, games are not won on paper. So I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Will Washington be able to keep their undefeated season going and make it to the national championship? It is worth noting that we have never had a fully undefeated season in this series, regular season and postseason. So Washington has a chance to make some history today. On the flip side, we've got the Auburn Tigers, a team who's been solid over the last couple of years, but this season they finally got over the hump, making it in as an at-large team. The Tigers are the only at-large team left in the playoff, as the other 3 teams are all conference champions. So let's get this Final Four started. The winner will face off against either Ohio State or TCU in the national championship. Auburn will start off with the football, looking to set the tone as Jet Jackson goes short. It's caught by Albert Branch, breaking multiple tackles. Branch down the field with a huge gain for the Tigers. He's still not down. Goodness gracious. And he gains around 25 yards. What a play after the catch. 2nd and 11. Tight end in motion. I see some movement on the line of scrimmage from Washington. No call. And it ends up being intercepted. The linebacker, Allen, picks it off. And the Washington Huskies will get the football there as they force the turnover. Washington scores a lot of points, but their defense is super strong too. They've got a lockdown secondary, and they've got playmakers up front. Kai Suggs-Gardner on 3rd and 13 goes short for the running back, Jason Thornburg, and he loses 2. So Washington will ultimately end up doing nothing off of the turnover. The Auburn Tigers will get it back, 3rd down and long. Jet Jackson under pressure, goes downfield, and it is hauled in for a first down by Trayon Scott. The number 1 receiver on this team has seen his stock rise over the playoff as the screen pass is intercepted. A turnover for the Washington defense. This is Malik Osman. He'll take it to the house for a pick 6. And the Huskies are on the board first. Washington with their 2nd turnover of the game. Jet Jackson's first 2 drives of this matchup both result in interceptions. Not a great start for the senior quarterback. How will he respond as he connects with the tight end, Frederick Montgomery, who brings it to around midfield? I want to see what Jackson will be able to do to respond, and I want to see Auburn run the ball. They ran it so well against Florida. Today they've been all about the passing game. Another good throw from Jackson. He goes back over to Trayon Scott for another first down. The Tigers now with it in the red zone, 3rd and 5. Short passes caught for a first and more. It's Scott once again who brings it inside the 5. Can Auburn punch it in and tie this game up after turnovers on their first 2 drives? They will knot this one up at 7. It's guess who? Trayon Scott, who makes another play. He has been awesome on this possession, and so we are knotted up at 7. Washington gets the ball back. They still don't have the first down yet in this game. Kai Suggs-Gardner won't change that here as he throws it away. Good pressure from the Auburn defense. The Tigers started off a little bit suspect with the pick 6, but after that, they've gotten a touchdown, they've gotten a stop. Can they make another play, perhaps, as it's caught downfield by Lumpkin, who fumbles the ball? That is a 3rd turnover from the Auburn offense here in just the first quarter. Washington's defense is making plays early. Was the ball out, though? That's the question. And yes, that is a clear fumble forced by the safety, Joe King, who had a pick 6 back in the Pac-12 championship. So Washington gets it back. They've got to take advantage of these turnovers. Here's a big play after the catch by the freshman tight end, Brandon McTaggart, who brings it to the 34. Off of the first 2 turnovers, obviously Washington had the pick 6, but then off of the second one, they didn't score. Will they score here? It's a handoff for Ben Bones, the senior running back, and he is in for a score. The Washington Huskies will take the lead as it is now 14-7. Good drive for Washington. They're back on top. Ben Bones, by the way, the all-time leader in Washington rushing touchdowns. He's been a key contributor since his freshman season, continuing to make plays as a senior. Jet Jackson is sacked by Teiko Tehalani, the defensive tackle, for a loss of 8. Auburn will ultimately end up punting it. So the Huskies get it back. Here's Kai Suggs-Gardner, breaks a couple of tackles. Look at the senior quarterback go as he is wrapped up past the 30. A nice run for KSG. This Washington team is super senior driven. They've got a lot of veteran players contributing. None more important than the quarterback, Kai Suggs-Gardner, who's in for a rushing touchdown. And now Washington is really starting to feel themselves with back-to-back scoring drives. They lead 21-7 as we go to the second quarter. Jackson with a bomb that's caught by Trayon Scott. Touchdown, Auburn. Scott with his 2nd touchdown reception of the first half. And the Tigers are right back in it. A big-time throw from Jackson to Scott. And that connection makes another play for Auburn. But Washington is moving right back down the field. McTaggart brings it inside the 5. 3rd and goal now for the Huskies. Suggs-Gardner's going to look short. It's a screen for Jason Thornburg. And he does not get it. Big stop from Auburn. It's Buxton Young the 3rd. The senior corner makes a huge tackle. And instead of a touchdown, Washington will only tack on 3. You can make the argument they should have gone for it, but I actually like that call. Make it a 2-score game. Put yourselves in a good position to have the lead going into halftime no matter what. And another turnover will not hurt your cause. That's the same receiver, Lumpkin, who fumbled in the first quarter. He fumbles it here in the second quarter. That is now 4 turnovers for the Auburn offense, and we're still in the first half. So Washington gets it back, 3rd down and long. Suggs Gardner is sacked on the play. The defensive tackle, Bryant Rivera, brings him down. Washington has 4 turnovers, and I feel like they've barely capitalized off of them. So Auburn has it back. Nice throw downfield caught by Creed Price. And he is in for a touchdown. It's just a 3-point game. Even with turning the ball over 4 times already, Auburn is still in it. So that'll bring us to the ensuing kickoff, 24-21, as the return man bobbled the snap. And that's going to be a safety. So Auburn only trails by 1. And now they will get the ball back. On 3rd and 10, Jackson will have to throw out of the sack, and so Auburn gets nothing off of this drive. I feel like both of these teams have made quite a few mistakes today, and the other teams really have not capitalized off of those mistakes. So Washington gets it back. Suggs Gardner short throw is caught. Nice play after the catch for a 1st down and more. That is Ryan Alston with a gain of around 15 yards, and Washington will call a timeout to stop the clock. They're moving it well. They are in field goal range as Suggs Gardner goes downfield for the Biletnikoff winner, Racer Fox, who gains around 20. Washington will look to tack on 3 more points. The kick is up and good. So a very eventful first half here in the first matchup of the college football playoff semifinal. Washington leads Auburn 27-23 in what has been a really exciting game so far. On to the second half. Can either team take control? Washington with the ball, 3rd and 4, it's a screen. Ben Bones breaks tackles, look at him go! Bones still on his feet, and he gets it all the way to the 13. A big play after the catch there by Bones, and the Washington Huskies will punch it in. It's the other running back, Jason Thornburg, with the score. Thornburg and Bones have such a lethal connection within the two of them. 2 very talented players in their own right. Auburn looks to get the screen game going with Gaffeyson Quentin. He is hit out of bounds, almost a late hit. That's not going to be the flag, though. It will be a clipping call, and thus the penalty will be declined. It is a 4th and 1. Interesting decision here for Auburn, and they will look to kick. If they make the kick, it is an 8-point game, so technically it would be a 1-possession deficit. They are that close, so you can argue why not go for it. But the kick is good, and so it is 34-26. What an odd score. So Washington gets it back. They can make it a 2-score game with any form of points here. KSG goes downfield. Nice throw in the hands of Racer Fox. And he brings it to around the 15 for a gain of 40. Big play for Fox, the potential 1st-round draft pick. 2nd and 9. Suggs Gardner with a strike. It's caught for a touchdown. Brandon McTaggart, the freshman, makes another play. And so Washington extends the lead. Kai Suggs Gardner, by the way, this season broke Washington's passing touchdown record set a couple of years ago by Keontae Jordan, who was the starter here before KSG. 2nd and 5 for Auburn. Jackson is sacked on the play. Auburn's got to get something going quickly after the sack by Tony Adichie. They would ultimately punt it. Washington gets it back, and they had the chance to make this a big deficit, but Auburn will not let that happen. Jacob Jackson with the sack, and then the Tigers will force the punt. Into the 4th quarter now, it's a 15-point lead for Washington, but I don't think Auburn is quite out of this game yet. On 1st down, Jet Jackson looks to throw it with a strike downfield. It's Creed Price for the score, and Auburn can make it a 1-possession deficit here. Do they go for 2 now, or do they wait? I always like the idea in this situation to just go for 2 right away, and that's what Auburn's going to do here. No need to wait. It's Gaffeyson Quentin, and he does not get it. Gaffeyson Quentin was the best player on the field against Florida. Today he has been silenced by the Washington defense. So the Huskies have it back. There's Cedric Cabral, college football's defensive player of the year, with the sack. Cabral has really been held in check today. That's his 1st tackle of the entire game, let alone sack. Washington's done a good job of masking him up, and I think that's partly why they're winning, and they will make another play here as it's intercepted by Davis Slater, the projected 1st-round pick at corner. A big turnover for Davis Slater, the All-American. That's now 5 turnovers against the Auburn offense today. 3rd and 5, screen for the running back Thornburg. He does not get much. Maybe back to the original line of scrimmage. And so Washington will look to kick. And so they now lead this game by 12 with not a whole lot of time left on the clock. Auburn's got to respond, and they've got to move quickly. 3rd down and 11 for the Tigers. What do they have up in store here? They've got to score quickly, and then they've got to get the ball back. Jackson goes short for Creed Price. He does not get the first down. So Washington gets the stop. Auburn on 4th down would surprisingly elect to punt it. I don't really get that call. You're down by 12. I don't think there's much time to waste. Washington will look to potentially end the game here, but Suggs Gardner throws it away, so maybe Auburn's decision to punt might have actually not been that bad. So the Tigers now have it at the opposing 30-yard line. Clock continuing to tick. Pass downfield is caught by Scott, but out of bounds. However, the booth would review it, and as you can see here, Scott gets the left foot in. And remember, in college football, you only need 1 foot in bounds for it to be a catch. So the call stands. Auburn would get the first down, but now it's a 4th and goal. Jackson looks for St. Quentin, and he drops the ball. Deflected by the defensive player, and I think this game is just about over. McQueen, the middle linebacker, got a hand on it, and that's all she wrote. The Washington Huskies continue their perfect season. They will be the first team to punch their ticket in this year's national championship game. 44-32 your final. A pretty exciting matchup here with Washington and Auburn, but it did always kind of feel like Washington was in control. Auburn did not run the ball anywhere near as well as they did last week, and they turned the ball over 5 times. Jet Jackson did his best Jameis Winston impression, throwing for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns and 71% completion percentage, but he was also picked off 3 times. I honestly think the run game was more of an issue than the turnovers today because Washington rarely capitalized off the turnovers. Creed Price and Trayon Scott both had generational performances in this one, but it was still not enough. Auburn's defense made some plays. They did get 5 sacks. But they didn't force any turnovers, and they allowed 44 points, which is kind of a lot. Cedric Cabral, in particular, really held in check. Kai Suggs Gardner, very solid performance on the ground and in the air. I know he had -6 yards, but he did have a couple of good runs. Ben Bones was good. Racer Fox, good per usual. McTaggart was impressive. And then the defense, 5 turnovers. That's a whole lot. They had 3 interceptions. They had 2 fumbles off of the same player. So Washington's going to the championship. So next up, we've got the number 1 seeded Ohio State Buckeyes facing off against the Cinderella 12-seeded TCU Horned Frogs, the 2 most previous national champions looking to get back to the big game. We'll start with TCU, who is the 2nd consecutive 12 seed to make the Final Four. Last year, Oklahoma did, and they ended up making it to the national championship before losing to Ohio State. I think unlike Oklahoma last year, this feels like a true Cinderella run. TCU wasn't even supposed to win their conference championship and be here, but not only have they done that, but they won their first 2 games of the playoff, beating Notre Dame and Texas Tech, 2 very good teams who had only lost 1 game each in the regular season. TCU, halfway through the season, was under 500. They were 3-4. A bowl game looked out of the question, let alone a spot in the Final Four. But they have not lost since. They won 5 consecutive regular season games, along with 3 games now in the playoff. And it's because this team is fully healthy. Quarterback Tegan Yeager missed a large chunk of the year, but he is healthy, he is good to go, and he has played great over his last few games. The TCU Horned Frogs obviously won the championship 2 years ago, and they still have a number of contributors from that team, including running back Harry Stewart. They've got a great receiving core with St. George, Weaver, Diabate, and Stokes. Their offensive line is one of the best in the country, and their defense, while not as good as it was 2 years ago when they won the championship, is very solid. But truthfully, this team on paper doesn't really belong here, and we'll figure out truly how good this team is against the juggernaut Ohio State Buckeyes. We have never had a number 1 seed win the national championship in this series. If anybody's going to change that trend, I think it could be the Buckeyes, who won the national championship last year, and they are even better this year. These guys have the experience. They have 90% of their roster from last year, including quarterback Puma Whitlock, running back Mookie Davis, and others. The Buckeyes steamrolled past Notre Dame in the conference championship. In their first playoff game, they steamrolled past USC. The thing with this Ohio State team is not many of their games have been very interesting this year because they have beaten everybody by 30. Their point differential is literally 30, which is ridiculous. They lost to Oklahoma to start the year, the team who they beat in the national championship last season, and ever since then, they have won every single game by at least 20. No exaggeration. So because of the fact that Ohio State is always winning by so much, they haven't had to throw the ball a lot. Puma Whitlock has only had to be a game manager, but he has been an unbelievably efficient one at that. Mookie Davis, Ramir Conwell, and Puma Whitlock have combined for 34 rushing touchdowns this year. This team has the best run game in the country. They also have the best run defense. They score more points than anybody. They allow less points than anybody. They are just that good. Can the clock continue to run for TCU, or will it strike midnight for Cinderella? Ohio State looking to get to their second consecutive national championship, and on paper, they should certainly beat TCU. But again, college football games are not always won on paper, so we'll see if the Buckeyes can get the job done and be the first team in this series to make it to a second consecutive championship. Or can the TCU Horned Frogs get back there for a second time in 3 years? Who will face off against Washington in the championship? Will it be TCU, or will it be the Ohio State University? So TCU opens up with the ball, 3rd and 3. Harry Stewart does not get it. He loses a yard, quickly wrapped up by Patrick Barber. So that'll force a punt, and Ohio State will get the football. This team can score in a variety of different ways. Their strength is running the ball, but when they need to, they can sling it. On 2nd and 8, Puma Whitlock goes downfield. He connects. Nice throw and catch into the hands of Auden Green, the number 1 receiver for the Buckeyes, and he'll get around 25 yards. Following play here for Ohio State. Whitlock looks to throw it again, goes downfield, has Green open, and he gets it to the 5. A gain of nearly 30 for Auden Green. Ohio State has it on the goal line as they look to score first here in this one. 3rd and goal. Puma Whitlock looks to throw it up the middle. Caught for a touchdown by guess who? Auden Green. If we've learned anything about this Ohio State team, once you're down early, you're not coming back against these guys because they're so consistent up front. They've got such a good run game, so TCU has to respond quick. 3rd and 4, nice little screen for Stewart. Gets by the defender, and Harry Stewart is pushed out late, but not before getting a huge play on the screen. 3rd and 6 now for TCU. Yeager looks to throw it. Pump fake. His pass is dropped in and out of the hands of the receiver, and TCU will look to kick here on 4th and 6. It's a long one from around 56 yards out, and it is no good. He missed it. So TCU is unable to score on this possession. As you can see here, the kick ends up going wide to the left. So Ohio State will get it back, looking to extend the lead here in the first quarter. They're moving it down the field well. Puma Whitlock hands it off for Ramir Conwell. Conwell breaks a couple of tackles, and he will make it into the end zone for a touchdown. Ramir Conwell missed basically all of last season with a torn Achilles. He's obviously fully healthy now, and has been a big piece of this Ohio State championship run, as it's now 14-0. Again, if you fall behind early against these guys, you ain't coming back. 3rd and 1. Stewart does not get it. Gaining nothing. I would have almost considered going for it if I was TCU. They instead punt it. Now Ohio State is a 3rd and 10. Puma Whitlock takes a shot downfield. It's caught in the end zone by Auden Green. What a catch for the touchdown. That'll wrap up the first quarter. Look at that scoreboard. It has been all Ohio State. They lead it 21-0 with a ridiculous throw and catch by Puma Whitlock and Auden Green. And Ohio State looks like they are the real deal. To the surprise of just about nobody, this team is really, really good. So TCU has it back, 3rd and 12. Yeager looks to throw it, goes downfield, and he throws it away. So Ohio State gets another stop, and they've got a shot to potentially make this lead even bigger than it already is. 3rd and 8, Puma Whitlock scrambling with it, and he is sacked. TCU finally with a stop. It's Charles Border who brings him down, and Ohio State would have to punt it for the first time today. So if the Horned Frogs do get the stop, can they finally put themselves on the board here? 3rd and 6 at around midfield for TCU. We'll see if this is going to be the drive where they finally do it. Yeager looks to potentially make a play here, as it will be a screen, and he doesn't even get it off. Yeager has the mob chasing after him. There was like 4 Buckeyes in the backfield, but ultimately it's Drogo Mills who gets credited with the sack. No blocking whatsoever. Yeager couldn't even get the ball off there on the screen, and so Ohio State has it back. Whitlock on 2nd and 5 takes another strike for the end zone, and it's Auden Green again. Puma Whitlock and Auden Green have single-handedly annihilated this TCU defense today, and it's now 28-0. Whitlock and Green with 3 touchdowns each here in the first half. Puma Whitlock has still not thrown an incompletion, by the way. He is basically the QB version of Jesus. 28-0 here at halftime. Not looking good for the TCU Horned Frogs, if I were to say so myself. Ohio State starts with the ball here in the third quarter, and they will get right back to work. Puma Whitlock, Auden Green again. That's 4 receiving touchdowns from Auden Green, all of which from Puma Whitlock. He still has not thrown an incompletion, by the way. So TCU has it back, and it is much of the same for the Horned Frogs. Yeager is sacked again, this time by Justin Lanham. Ohio State would get it back. They would march all the way down the field, and they would score again. Mookie Davis now with the touchdown, and it is 42-0. TCU would finally march down the field. They would bring it into the red zone. Will this be where the Horned Frogs finally score? Yes, it is. Tegan Yeager shrugging off defenders in for the touchdown, and it's 42-7. Ohio State with it back. It's now time to chew clock, and there's a reason why this is the #1 rushing team in the nation. Not just because they're so good on the ground, which, I mean, they are. Mookie Davis averages like 8 yards a carry. But they run it so often. 2nd and goal. Davis spins away from tacklers, and he is in for another score. Mookie Davis with his 2nd touchdown of the third quarter, and it is now 49-7. TCU looking to add some more points here early in the fourth as they have a 3rd and goal. We'll see if they can punch it in. Handoff for Harry Stewart. Nice move, and he is in for a touchdown. Unsurprisingly, that won't be enough. The clock has struck midnight for the Cinderella Horned Frogs as the #1 seeded Ohio State Buckeyes will be going back to the championship for a 2nd straight year. They blow out TCU 49-14. Yeah, this was completely one-sided, and it was from the start. Puma Whitlock is him. Auden Green is him. Nuff said. This Ohio State team is really, really good. I don't know how anybody can beat these guys. Not even Washington. Ohio State with 600 yards of offense, nearly 300 on the ground, over 300 in the air. Puma Whitlock completed 26 of 27 passes for 302 yards and 4 touchdowns. This guy is Houdini in the pocket. I mean, he is just absolutely insane. Ohio State ran the ball very well, too. Mookie Davis was phenomenal. I don't know how Ohio State has been able to compile this much talent on a one roster. There's Auden Green, 8 catches for 164 yards and 4 touchdowns. My God. Defensively, Ohio State was very strong as well. TCU did not score until the second half, and they've got a very strong offense. Tegan Yeager statistically was not too bad. It's not his fault TCU lost. It's not really anybody's fault. It's just that Ohio State is so much better than this team. That's really the only explanation for this ball game. You got to give TCU credit, though. One hell of a run. These guys were not supposed to be here. I mean, they weren't even supposed to be in their conference championship, but they got lucky down the stretch at the end of the regular season, and they took advantage of their chance, winning the conference championship, winning 2 playoff games, but unfortunately for them, they ran into the Ohio State Buckeyes. So that'll bring us into the national championship game. #1 Ohio State versus #2 Washington. The 2 best teams in the country face off for the championship. And interestingly, we have never had a #1 seed or a #2 seed win the national championship in this series. We've actually had a #2 seed never make it until today with Washington. The 2 seed has kind of always been the cursed number. And finally, we've got a 2 seed here, but they've got a tall task ahead of them with the #1 seeded Ohio State Buckeyes. #1 seeds are 0-2 in the national championships in this series. In Season 1, top-seeded South Alabama ended up losing to Georgia. In Season 2, top-seeded Clemson ended up losing to TCU. So #1 and #2 seeds have not gotten a lot of luck throughout this series, but one of these 2 teams has a chance to make history regardless. We'll start with the Ohio State Buckeyes, who are the perfect team in just about every way imaginable. Of the major 8 team statistical categories, they lead the entire country in 6 of them. This might be the greatest team we have ever seen, certainly within this series, and they have the opportunity to be the first team to win multiple national championships within this series, in particular, multiple championships in a row, as they look to truly start a dynasty. They have looked unstoppable the entire season. All of their wins have been at least by 20 points. In the playoff, they dominated USC. They dominated TCU. But if anybody's going to stop them, I think it could be Washington. The Huskies have a chance to make history as well. Within this series, we have never had a team finish with a perfect season. Perfect regular season and playoff. It has never happened. Nobody has ever gone fully undefeated. Washington has a chance to change that today. So which team will make history? Will we get our first dynasty or our first perfect season? Ohio State will start with the ball, and they're going to get right to work on the ground. Mookie Davis with a gain of around 16 yards. I'm curious to see what the game plan for the Ohio State offense will be. Are they going to focus on the ground, or are they going to focus on the pass? Puma Whitlock keeps it on 3rd and 1, and he does not get it. A big stop from the Washington defense. It's Mark Lewis who brings him down. And so Ohio State will have to start with a field goal. So the Buckeyes do score on their opening possession, but only with 3. As I've mentioned throughout the entire playoffs with Ohio State, if you trail against them early, you're not coming back. So Washington has to be on their A game here in the first quarter. 3rd and 7, Suggs Gardner goes short, and it's going to be only a gain of around 5 for Boris Reynolds. So the Ohio State defense gets a 3 and out, and they will get it on offense. First play at the drive from around the 42-yard line. Puma Whitlock will keep it on the read option. He shrugs off the tackle. Whitlock with blocks down the field. Puma Whitlock into the end zone for a touchdown. This kid is just flat out different. Puma Whitlock with a 58-yard touchdown, and it's now 10-0. He's got the speed and elusiveness of Lamar Jackson, but he's got the poise in the pocket of Joe Burrow. I mean, he is the perfect quarterback, and he has shown that time and time again throughout the playoff. He won the college football playoff MVP last season. You'd think he would win it if Ohio State wins this game today, and they're off to a good start. Washington has to respond. They cannot fall behind big early, and that's one way to make a play. It's Racer Fox with a gain of 17. Washington's got to be thinking touchdown on this drive. The field goal would be nice, but they've got to be thinking 7. Nice throw up the middle for Boris Reynolds, and he gets it inside the 10. Great play for Washington. They now have it on the goal line and a perfect opportunity to put themselves back in the game. On 2nd and goal, it's a handoff for Jason Thornburg, and he is in for a touchdown. It looks like Washington's going to make it a game after all, as it is now 10-7. Good drive for the Huskies, and Ohio State will get it back. On the last drive, they only needed one play, 58-yard touchdown for Puma Whitlock. First play of this drive, Whitlock keeps it again, runs up the middle, jukes by defenders, and he once again is gone. Puma Whitlock says, wait up, hold my drink. A 75-yard rushing touchdown on the first play of the drive. Ohio State hasn't even needed to move it down the field because Puma Whitlock is just going to do it himself. Another super long touchdown for Puma Whitlock. As you can tell, I don't think Washington can stop him. And it's right back to a 10-point lead. And the Huskies are right back to square one. 2nd and 1 late in the first. Kai Suggs Gardner goes short for Jason Thornburg. Nice play after the catch. It's a first down. Washington's offense, I've got to say, they've looked pretty good over the last couple of drives. It's just going to be, if they can stop Puma Whitlock, which is a big ask. 2nd and 1. Suggs Gardner connects with Dustin Burnett for the touchdown. We might have ourselves a shootout. Ohio State's offense has been phenomenal, and Washington is trading punches blow for blow as well. It's now 17-14. We're still in the first quarter, by the way. 3rd and 2 for Ohio State. This would be a big stop for Washington if they can get it. It's an option for Davis, and he is stopped. So Washington gets the stop, and that'll wrap up the first quarter, 14-17. Your score. All things considered, you can't be feeling that bad if you're Washington because you've got a real shot to take the lead here from the 24-yard line, trailing by 3. It is a 1st and 10 to start the second. Suggs Gardner looks to throw it, and he is throttled to the ground by the senior defensive tackle, Wyatt Berglund. Nice play for Ohio State, who will look to make sure Washington is unable to take the lead, as it is now a 3rd and 14. The tight end, McTaggart, in motion. Suggs Gardner, no time to throw it. He is sacked again. This time it's Casey Bailey who brings him down, and now Washington might be out of field goal range. This is going to be a long kick. We're looking at around 55 yards. This one is up, and it will doink off the crossbar. No good. So Ohio State will hold on to the lead as the kick deflects off the left upright. Unfortunate. Ohio State will get it back. They're marching down the field very nicely. 3rd and inches. Puma Whitlock keeps it himself, and he is back into the end zone. Puma Whitlock might as well build a house here in the red zone because it looks like he's going to live here for a while. Whitlock with his 3rd rushing touchdown of the first half, and it's now 24-14. Washington can get it back. They would strike down the field as well. Suggs Gardner's pass on 3rd and inches is deflected by the inside linebacker, Donovan Brown. Washington will kick here. I don't entirely blame them. Make it a one-score game as the kick this time is good. But I do want to see Washington be aggressive. That might be their really only realistic way to be able to win this game because Ohio State's offense looks like an unstoppable force. The Buckeyes get it back. They lead this one by 7, looking to potentially extend the lead. Puma Whitlock's pass is caught short by Mookie Davis. Davis shrugs off the defender, and Mookie Davis gets it to around the 40. A big run after the catch by Mookie Davis, a projected first-rounder in this year's draft as he looks to be the highest running back selected since Saquon Barkley. 3rd and 3, it's a screen for the other running back, Ramir Conwell, and he does not get it. Good stop by the Washington defense, and so Ohio State will likely kick here, look to make it a 2-score game as the kick is good. So Washington's got to make some plays here before the end of the half. They've got to make sure the deficit is within 1 possession. And they do start with the ball in the second half, so making a nice little comeback here is not overly unconceivable at this stage in the game. But again, if you fall behind too much, you ain't coming back against these guys. KSG on 3rd and 4, his pass is dropped right into the hands of this receiver, but it's broken up by the cornerback. Can you catch? If Ohio State, on the flip side, can take a 3-score lead going into halftime, they'll be in a very good position. Puma Whitlock with a strike downfield for Kermit Wiltz. He breaks 2 tackles. Kermit Wiltz gets into the 12 for a gain of 52 yards. How can you stop Puma Whitlock? You can't stop him on the ground. You can't stop his arm. There's nothing you can do. Washington will stop them to a field goal on this possession as Puma Whitlock throws it away into the back of the end zone. So it will remain a 2-score game here, and Washington does have some time still on the clock to potentially score with over a minute left in the half. We'll see if they can take advantage. The start of this drive would not go overly well for them, so we're already chewing clock. I really don't like that. You got to be aggressive on this possession as it's a screen for Ben Bones, and he actually will get the first down and then some pass for 40. Washington calls a timeout, and now they're like, hey, maybe we can do something. The clock is running. They have a timeout. They're not going to use it. I don't get what they're trying to do here. Suggs Gardner is just going to have to go downfield, and it is caught by Torque Raleigh, and he is in for a last-second touchdown at the buzzer. And Washington will make it a 1-score game before halftime. That drive was so completely mismanaged, yet they still score a touchdown, and Washington is well within this game. It's 30-24. The Huskies start with the ball in the second half. This drive is so important for both teams. If Washington can get some first downs going, they can really position themselves well. Ohio State's got to avoid that, and they will, as it's only a gain of a couple there on 3rd down, and so Washington will punt it. It is only a 1-score game, but now Ohio State can look to extend the lead. Nice throwing catch into the hands of Auden Green, who had 4 touchdowns in the semifinal game against TCU, and he will put Ohio State onto the goal line. We'll see if they can punch it in here on 1st and goal, bring the lead back up to 2 scores as it's Ramir Conwell. He's in for a touchdown, and the Ohio State Buckeyes are back ahead by multiple possessions. It's now 37-24. Washington cannot let this deficit get much larger. They've got to score here. 3rd and 6 for the Huskies. Suggs Gardner looks to throw it. His screen is caught by Ben Bones. He will get the 1st and more. Down the sideline. Still on his feet, and he is pushed out at around the 40. Big play there for Bones, and Washington is moving it nicely. 3rd and 9, they're going to go back to the screen game because this game is obsessed, and it's only a gain of around 4 for Jason Thornburg. So Ohio State gets the stop, and it looks like it'll remain a 2-score game as the field goal is good. So if Ohio State scores a touchdown this next drive, they will lead by 3 possessions. That might be too much for Washington to really overcome. The Buckeyes are moving it nicely down the field. They've got it inside the 25 as it's a handoff for Davis with a nice little stutter step. Mookie Davis breaks a tackle and gets it to the 10. Mookie Davis now with 69 yards today. Nice. And Ohio State is once again moving it effortlessly down the field. Ramir Conwell with his second touchdown of the ball game. And Ohio State is now ahead by 3 possessions. We've seen some crazy comebacks in this series. Look no further than the first round of the playoff between Tennessee and USC. But truthfully, I'm not sure if this Ohio State team will ever let the pedal off the metal as we go into the fourth quarter. The Buckeyes lead at 44-27. They're 1 quarter away of winning their second straight national championship. We'll see if they can hold on. 3rd and 16, it's a run up the middle. I don't get the play call at all from Washington, and Donovan Brown quickly gets the stop. The Huskies would punt it. They're almost treating this like it's the middle of the second quarter in October as Puma Whitlock on the read option breaks the tackle. He is in for his 4th rushing touchdown of the game, and Ohio State now has a 50-burger. I think we've had like 3 teams throughout 4 national championship games score at least 50 points. That's pretty ridiculous. Ohio State now up by 24. Puma Whitlock and the fellows can just taste it on the sideline. Washington gets it back. Here's Kai Suggs-Gardner up the middle, and he is flipped over. He fumbles the ball. It's picked up by Donovan Brown, and he will take it for a scoop and score. What a disastrous second half for Washington, and it will just keep getting worse and worse and worse. Ohio State is now up by 31 points. Washington is still punting the ball at this stage of the game. I don't know if they've just waved the white flag or what exactly. Ramir Conwell on to return the punt for Ohio State. Go look at Conwell go, mauling through defenders. Ohio State just wants this more as he gets it past the 40. Ohio State starting with great field position again. We'll see if they can potentially get a 60-burger. 2nd and goal for Ohio State. It's a jet sweep. It's Kermit Wiltz. He's in for the touchdown. This game was once 30-24 halfway through the 3rd quarter. What happened? Washington would get the ball back. They would move down the field as Kai Suggs-Gardner connects with Rhodes for the touchdown. This is basically the college football equivalent of Chris Paul hits a huge 3 to cut the lead to 43. So it's 65-34. The clock has hit 0, and it is official. The Ohio State Buckeyes are back-to-back national champions as they defeat Washington here in the Natty 65-34. Yeah, this was a dominant performance from Ohio State, and this was a really competitive game in the first half, very similar to the championship last year of Ohio State and Oklahoma, and then Ohio State just busted the doors in the second half. The big difference between this year's and last year's was that Ohio State actually trailed for most of that first half, while as in this game, they never really trailed. Ohio State with 436 rushing yards compared to 58 for Washington. I think that statistic alone should basically tell you how this game went. We'll start with the Ohio State Buckeyes. What a super team. This is by far the greatest team we have seen in this series. Puma Whitlock wins his 2nd consecutive college football playoff MVP, and today it's for what he did on the ground. 21 carries, 292 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I think Puma Whitlock is the undisputed NCAA next up GOAT. Is there an argument for anybody else? I don't think so. 2 phenomenal years as a starter, 2 college football playoff MVPs. Shout out to Mookie Davis, capping off a great career with a final great game. Look at all the pancakes from the offensive line, such a dominant unit, and the defense made enough plays as well, more than enough, considering they won by 31 points, which is basically the average margin of defeat in an Ohio State game this year. As for Washington, you got to give these guys their flowers. They were very close to being the first perfect team in the history of this series. It has not happened yet, and it may never will. Kai Suggs-Gardner, though, was phenomenal. The problem was that Washington couldn't really run the ball, and once Ohio State really started piling on in the 3rd quarter, there was no real shot for Washington to come back. As I've been saying throughout the entire playoff, when Ohio State takes a big lead, you are not catching them no matter how good you are, and that was proven today here. Washington is as good as anybody, and they could not catch Ohio State whatsoever. So with that, the Ohio State Buckeyes have won another national championship, their 2nd in a row. We can officially call this team a dynasty. We can officially call them the greatest team we've ever seen in this series, and we can call Puma Whitlock the best player in this series. Here's a look at all the bowl games. You may notice random playoff teams scattered in different bowl games. You got to keep in mind the playoffs are not in NCAA 14. I had to do a lot of work behind the scenes and other save files to get all of these games together. It was a challenge, but I was able to do it. We're going to briefly look at the top 25 polls, all of the stat leaders, and then all of the players who are underclassmen and declaring for the draft today as I kind of reflect here with the final episode of this series for now. By the way, how is Michigan State number 2? I don't get that at all, but whatever. That's besides the point. So, what a really fun series this has been. I came up with this idea last year, shortly after the NFL draft, because I thought it would be really fun to spice up the Madden series by adding a college football element into it and really being able to follow these players' collegiate careers so we can get more of a storyline about them before they enter the NFL. And I'm really happy I did. This was a really fun series. I know everybody who watched the series really enjoyed it by getting players on teams and doing pick'ems and voting for the playoff and all of that. I'm really happy I was able to make this a fully interactive series, and I feel like you guys really did your part in making this series as good as it could have been. So what is the future of the NCAA Next Up series, as we will be taking a look at the players who will be entering the draft. These players will be inserted into the Season 4 draft class for the Titan series. For what it's worth, Puma Whitlock did not declare for the NFL draft. He will be running it back one more year at Ohio State. So that means Puma Whitlock and others will not be in the Titan series. But has this been the last vote we've seen of them? I don't think it will. I think these guys might be back. I'm not sure if NCAA Next Up is going to be back in the same capacity that it was this year, but I've got some time to think about it here over these next few months as I figure out what I'm going to do for Madden 24 and how I'm going to implement college football into that series. So let me know what you thought of this series down below. Let me know what you thought of this season, this playoff run, the Ohio State Dynasty. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.